Welcome. My name is Jamie Aver. I am a school counselor at Mountain View High School. And today we are very fortunate to have Micaiah from Whitman College here joining us to talk about the process of researching and applying to colleges. I do want to remind everyone that this session is being recorded. So I'm going to introduce Micaiah and then she will begin. So this session is titled Researching and Applying to Colleges 101. If you're not in the right session, please return back to the Countdown for College main website to get to the session that you want to attend for 6 o'clock. And so right now, Micaiah Resiner is joining us from Whitman College. She is the Assistant Director of Admissions. Take it away, Micaiah.
Thank you. Yeah. Micaiah, she, her pronouns. She said I work for Whitman College, but a lot of this content will be pretty relevant to most colleges that you apply to, but maybe a little bit more of a bias towards small liberal arts. I attended a small liberal arts college and I've worked for 2 so far. So that's usually where a lot of my expertise is, but you can give me an email. We'll put out my email afterwards if you have any follow-up questions. So for today's session, I really just want to talk about, the kind of misconceptions when you're going into the college admission process, because I know it can be quite challenging. I was a first generation to college student, meaning that, neither of my parents had attended a college, and oh my gosh, was it unmuted this whole time?
I'm so sorry, Micaiah. No, that was just for the last 10 seconds. My apologies.
Oh, good. Okay. So I was saying I was first gen student, trying to learn the ropes of like what kind of colleges are out there. There are so many. I mean, there's thousands of colleges within the United States. So it's hard to sometimes narrow it down and find this place that's gonna be like the perfect fit for you. When the reality is there are a lot of really great colleges out there and colleges and universities. So I just want to start by a couple, myth busting examples when you're looking at different colleges and that when you're applying for colleges. It's one of the things that I hear all the time from families and students, especially ones who have actually done a lot of research and they think there's some kind of secret formula to finding a college and being accepted into their dream college. And really there are so many different factors in play when they go into decisions. You could be admitted to one school and not admitted to another school with the exact same application that seems like both schools are very similar. And there's just a lot of other factors in play, like, how many spots are available or what is the school's institutional priorities, all of which shouldn't be completely secret factors. You can ask them and get a sense of what they are looking for, and that'll help best cater your application. This other idea that you have to be like a perfect student, like straight A's, right? Like I have to have straight A's to go to college and have like a most packed extracurricular list or resume. That is also just not completely true. We want to see students that have been pursuing rigor and doing their best, performing as well as they can within their context. Ending on a good note is always better than like if you had a rough start. If you can end on a good note, that will go a long way. But like I said, there's so many schools out there. So the idea that you have to be a straight A student to get into every college is just not true at all. Of course, it's more competitive at some schools with lower acceptance rates. But again, you just ask those questions beforehand. I hear also that students think that they have to write the most interesting essay, like the most unique essay. And I kind of think that maybe this is a bit of a hot take on my part, that there are very, very few really, really unique essay topics out there. It's hard to come up with a brand new essay topic that's never been written before. That just is not happening as much as people think. I would rather a student just spend the time writing an essay that is about something they actually care about. So like if you are really into reading and you want to tell me about a book that really sparked your interest, that will go a lot farther than spending months on end, because I did this as a student, months on end thinking about what to write about versus just sitting down and starting to write something. Same goes, the test scores are similar with grades. So many schools are test optional nowadays that you may not even need to take the standardized tests. If you have the ability to, and they're not like a financial hindrance, I recommend that you just take them to have scores in case something requires you to have them later. But again, just talk to the schools that you're interested in, and ask if they're test optional. Most of the time, students do not have to actually fully know what they want to study when they go off to college. Unless you are going into a specific kind of research level program that requires that you declare a major so you can be accepted into that school within the university, like the School of Medicine and nursing, engineering, like within a larger university. Most of the time, students have a couple semesters to explore classes, figure out what they want to study. That's definitely the case for small liberal arts. And again, this idea that there is this one perfect school out there for everybody is really hard to, I think, trying to convince students that that's not always the case. There are rankings lists, I know, and like a lot of times that plays into folks' decisions what schools they're applying to. But so many of the schools offer so many of the same programs, have very strong academics, and really just cater to a lot of different types of students. So I can guarantee you that if there's one school in your mind that you think that is a school you want to go to, there's at least a couple dozen others that are all very similar. And I would encourage you to at least look into them and see. You might be surprised. You might find a school that you never even heard of before that actually fits all the things you're looking for. So this is just kind of a sample of what we'll talk about as we go through the process. If you are younger than your junior year, I will never say that you're starting too early, but sometimes all this can be a lot of information that you don't actually need to have at the forefront of your mind just yet. A lot of the work that you can do when preparing to apply for colleges really just starts your junior year. At this point, maybe you've taken some rigorous courses and you have an idea of like what area of study that you're interested in. You've taken enough classes in high school that you know maybe how you best learn, like, or do you like big schools? Do you like big classrooms or small classrooms, things like that. So we'll go through this each by year, like junior year, going into senior year, and kind of wrapping up. So starting your junior year, I recommend that you start exploring different resources that are out there. There are tons of different online resources. I mean, it sounds pretty simple, but just, if you start with just Google, that's a good place to start. But of course, there are so many different sites, and many of them are review-based or basically opinion-based and not always pulling from the data that comes from the schools. So it's always kind of best to double check those things. But it's also important to read folks' reviews of schools because you want to know what their actual lived experience was like at that institution. Some popular ones I know that students rely on is like niche.com, NICHE. That's a big one. Talks about a lot of different schools. There's also some college search links that are actually guided by data that is collected by the federal government. So you can see those kind of lists as well. College Board has a lot of good search engines as well. You might want to start considering what kind of programs you're looking for. Like I said, you don't have to know exactly all the time, but if you know you're into science or like you want to go down the pre-med track, let's look at pre-med programs or different ways, which schools have good matriculation rates into medical school. I want you all to make sure your list has a good diverse set of options. Like I said, don't just set yourself on one track and put all your eggs in one basket. There's lots of schools out there. You can apply to a bunch of them. The Common App allows you to apply to, I think it might be upwards of 20 schools for free. So use that as a tool. And then again, in junior year, this is a good time to start asking questions, like join sessions like this or join virtual sessions that the colleges are offering if they still are. If you're able to visit, that's great. But or even just send them an email. I get emails all the time from students that say just introducing themselves, saying what they're into, asking about cool things in that department. I just got an email recently about like our environmental science department, and they wanted to know what kind of research opportunities students had. So I just sent them off some links, connected them with a professor, and it's just a good way to kind of start building relationships with the different admission offices. And I really recommend using some kind of spreadsheet tool. It just helps you be a little more organized. That way you can add notes as you find them. They're all in one space. Yeah. Some questions to be thinking about, is what kind of academic disciplines are important to you. We kind of covered that, but different kind of learning styles. Are you a student who likes to really know their professors or their teachers? They don't really want to be just one number up in a huge lecture style classroom. Do they like to be able to meet with their professors more often, or do you like to be fairly more independent and not have to check in with your professors as often? So that kind of plays into size. Do you like a school where almost everybody, they know who you are? I preferred small schools because I like that there's more folks kind of looking out for me, and more opportunities to build. You just knew more people on campus. If you go to larger schools, some students like that feeling of kind of the big campus vibe. It kind of plays the campus culture. You go to big games and the games you see on ESPN and such. You think about geographical area, depending on where you live. How far away from home do you want to be? How far from an airport do you want the school to be? The climate, that's usually a big factor. If you've never had snow before, do you want to experience that? Or are you still, you're more of a warm, body person? So those things to think about. And then what kind of other programs does the school offer? Some schools are really known for their commitment to study abroad, or good support for internships, or access to research facilities. Just a couple examples. And so think about what extracurriculars you do in high school and how you want to continue them in college, and if you do. And then lastly, kind of think about what is financial aid and scholarships. This could be a whole different presentation on its own. This is a lot to go into here, but mainly I just want to take apart that misconception that the really expensive schools, with the schools with the highest sticker price, are just not accessible to everybody. And when reality is, many of the most expensive schools in the country actually meet the most financial need for a good proportion of their students. Whitman is an example of a school that has a really high sticker price, tuition, room and board, fees all added up. But we also provide financial aid for 90% of our students, with the average package being somewhere around $50,000. So it might start high, but we can also fill quite a bit of need based off the family's finances. So it's also important to ask about different scholarships. Do students just qualify for merit scholarships? Do they have to apply for them? Are there specialized scholarships for certain demographics, or maybe sports, or some kind of other activity or skill set that you're bringing to campus, like music or debate? All right, so junior year, it's kind of, we went through, look at different online resources, different programs. I recommend that if you are able to, go see a college that is nearby-ish to you. You don't have to hop on a plane. Go to the one that's in your backyard, even if it's a community college, or I guess a more localized university. Just get the chance to go walk around, and that will help you get a sense of what colleges feel like, because many colleges have a kind of a similar feeling once you're on them. But you might start to, make a list in your head, or hopefully on paper somewhere, of what things you like and what things, maybe you're not so interested in. Spring your junior year, I highly recommend that you meet with your high school counselor, whether that is your school's counselor, or if it's if you have a career or college going counselor, meet with them, because they want to get an idea of what you're looking for, so then they can actually refer you to different schools that they know about that might meet your needs. You again go into that meeting with open eyes, and know that you don't have to know exactly what you want. And then maybe they can start helping you prepare for how you want to go about your summer plans if you're able to visit other schools. All right, so when we've kind of gotten a foundation. Like maybe you have a list of schools put together, you've asked some good questions, you're kind of looking at some examples. This is when you start thinking about how you're going to apply. And so that summer going into your senior year is when you really, what you can do is first enjoy your summer, because it's your high school years. Just, you don't have to work the whole summer. But try to kind of accumulate all the information that you need, right? So you've put together your list. I recommend that you already have requested, before you went to the summer, for like a teacher recommendation from one of your favorite teachers. Just give them a heads up that you'll be asking them. They might not complete it before the summer, and that's fine. But just have an idea of who you want to ask, or just be waiting for it. Start collecting, if you're planning to do like an arch portfolio or something extra, start putting those things together, just so you can kind of hit the ground running once the fall starts. But in the fall, this is when I recommend that you actually, kind of August, at the end of the summer, going into the fall, sit down and at least open up some of the applications, fill in the information that you know the answer to. That always feels good to start something off strong. Your name, your personal information. That first part of the Common App is how a lot of students apply to a couple hundred different schools. Is easy because you just fill out all that information one time. Your personal information, parents' personal information, school information, extracurricular list, and just get that out of the way. On your little to-do list, keep track of deadlines. Most of these are going to be posted right on the school's admissions webpage. And many of us have very similar, some of us have the same deadlines or very similar deadlines. Like a lot of schools, their early decision one is due November 1st, but like at Whitman, it's November 15th. So you have a little more time. So kind of want to get those all straightened out in your head and maybe just aim for the first date anyways. Some schools allow you to create an applicant portal before you fully apply. You can do like a pre-apply process. That way you can get kind of signed in and be getting the information that you need earlier. In October is usually when the financial aid forms for applying for aid will open up. So all schools will require the FAFSA to receive federal aid and any kind of like aid that way. But many schools require the CSS profile like we do. And it's usually the schools that will provide the highest aid require that. I kind of joke that it's like the FAFSA on steroids because it takes a lot more time. And it asks a lot more questions, but they're good questions. They're questions that are meant to help us get a better sense of your family's finances, because we want to make sure that we kind of see the full picture and understand like where your family's finances are going, so we can actually give you the appropriate amount of aid, right? So if you have like other siblings that will be going into college at the same time as you, that's important information. If your family has other expenses like other dependents or medical bills, just a couple examples, we want to be able to give you a fair offer. But those usually open up in October. And the thing with the FAFSA, it's always like you want to apply earlier, just so it doesn't get too late in the year. And then again, check if the school you're applying to asks for additional materials. Like if you're applying for the music scholarship, you need to put together that portfolio earlier on and follow those rules. So, but I recommend that even if you are just applying for regular decision, which is usually after the new year for most schools, that you try to have all your application at least put together and ready to go, no later than Thanksgiving. Just because, one, it's not really fun to go into the winter holidays thinking about the fact that you haven't finished your application yet. It's just nice to get that out of the way. I should have lived by my advice because I procrastinated to the last moment, which has caused a lot of unnecessary stress. At least have it, 80-90% complete by then. And of course, it would need to be completed earlier if you're planning to apply early decision somewhere. Usually schools will just obviously require some form of application, whether that is their own application. I know in California, there's like the UC app, or, usually the Common App, Coalition app. There's an app for the HBCUs, historically Black colleges and universities. There's the QuestBridge app. For QuestBridge is a nationwide program that offers pretty much free rides to students. So there's a lot of different apps out there. Just gonna make sure the school you're applying to and see which one they require. We'll need transcripts, and those come from, usually it can be unofficial transcripts starting up at the beginning. We'll eventually need official transcripts. School report is sometimes called a school profile. That's something usually the counselor or the school will send us. Same with the counselor rec, and then the teachers will send us their rec through the link, usually through the Common App or to us directly. And of course, maybe you need your test scores depending on the school, and some schools require interviews. Many of them are just optional. So I just check into that. Interviews are nice because we get to see your face versus just seeing you on paper, which is two very different things. So yeah, it's kind of the roadmap, thinking of senior year, graph out your deadlines and your, what is your plan of attack going into that semester, collect all your materials that you need, apply for financial aid, and then, start posting your submissions. All right, and the final stretch. I know I'm kind of wrapping this up so quickly when really this could be like a year-long process, but like I said, by the latest, usually you want to have your application in for the regular decision rounds, which are sometime, in January. Little hint, like some schools have some flexibility in late submissions, but it's always better to have your materials in earlier. But I just say that because if something were to go wrong or like something got lost or whatever, most schools, it's not the end of the world. You didn't have it submitted by midnight or something or wrong. There's a lot of flexibility. I think that's a misconception in the kind of college admissions world. But you give us, it's usually about 2 months-ish. Around March is when schools will start releasing their decisions. That is going to usually include a full financial aid package. If you are admitted, if you are on a wait list, that usually doesn't have a package at the time, but you can accept the wait list offer, and you might have to wait a little bit longer, but to see how they decide to work with that. But I really recommend that once you get all your decisions, they kind of come out staggered from different schools, but just sit down and kind of look at them, right, and compare a bit, and compare the offers that you're getting from each school to their total cost of attendance. And see which ones maybe are a better deal for you. But the biggest thing to take away is that so many schools are actually really willing to work with you when it comes to like financial aid appeals. Like you need a little bit more money because one school's giving you this amount, but you'd rather go to this school. Those numbers are many times are not locked in permanently. Some schools have explicit policies saying they don't do merit appeals, or they're not going to like up it at all, but it never hurts to ask, right? What's the worst thing? They just say no, and then you live with what you're given. But otherwise, please talk to us, because there's actually a lot of flexibility. Many of these schools have a lot of financial aid to hand out, and they want to fill the class, and they want students who want to be there. So the more like you are excited about the school and you take that self-initiative to talk to us about your needs, like the more willing we are to work with you. And then usually after this time, there's going to be admitted student days and visits. Like this is one of the best times to come and visit campuses because they'll have full day programs. Oh, don't know why that happened. One moment.
Do you need help with something?
No, just that update likes to pop up sometimes.
Okay.
Can you still see the screen?
Yes, I don't see anything other than your presentation.
Let me see what I can do. Oh, that's not the right side, but that's okay. All right, let's wrap it up. There's a lot of different visit events that happen in the spring, usually in April. So you can come and visit campus like a weekend and see all the different offerings, go on a tour, go to a class. And many schools offer fly-in programs, which are usually like they pay for the whole experience. They'll pay for a flight, they'll pay for hotel, food, and everything. Many of those you can apply for, some you're selective. So just keep an eye out. And then really we're all just kind of working towards the national, May 1st decision deadline is when you have to make a decision, which school you're going to enroll in. Usually they ask for an enrollment deposit. If that deposit's ever an issue, again, just ask. They're usually pretty flexible. But yeah, that's really what you're working for. And then eventually after that, you are an enrolled student at that school. You get handed off to student affairs. They get you a new email. They get you all set up. You start, and then the whole new adventure starts, which is classes and dorms and like getting ready to move to go to college. So it's all pretty exciting. It all happens a lot faster than I think folks, usually assume. And, I hope the biggest takeaways you have are that if you do as much preparation as you can beforehand, you'll feel more confident in your decisions, right? Because it is a really big decision, like which school you're to go to. It can be a really big financial decision for you and your family. So it's best to have, you can't always have too much information. And then I encourage you to communicate as much as possible with the admission offices that you're working with, turn in materials on time, keep track of the emails that they send you, and then ask questions, because really there's no dumb questions. And it's literally our job. We're most of the time just waiting around to answer folks' questions and help them. So definitely don't feel scared reaching out. And hopefully this will just result in you finding the school that's going to work best for you. And hopefully you have a really good college experience. As mentioned earlier, if you have any questions, feel free to send me an email. You can find my name like on our staff website. I am the counselor for kind of the Santa Clara region. So I will be down there in the fall as well.
Well, this is Jamie Avera, a school counselor at Mountain View again. Thank you so much, Micaiah. I just really appreciate your presentation and the overview that you gave. I did want to remind people that I have put in the chat a few times because Micaiah mentioned the importance of the student meeting with their college counselor. And we are very fortunate to have 2 college counselors at our school in addition to your students' academic counselor. And so all juniors were given a presentation in January about an overview of the college application process, as well as how to schedule an appointment with their college counselor. So I've put that link a few times in the chat box. And then we actually only have 1 more minute, but if you could just speak, Micaiah, really quickly to a parent asked about demonstrated interest and if that makes a difference. And my response was generally no, unless the school explicitly states that that's something they look for. Is that your understanding as well?
Yeah, that's been my experience. I think demonstrated interest sometimes has been taken to the extremes, which means that they tally like every time you go to the website, every time you call, every time you email. And like, we don't do that. Like most schools don't do that. Maybe like the most selective have to. But we also want to see interest from the student and family. So of course, like we don't do like a tallying chart, but if we've met you and we've helped you and stuff, and then we go into the process of deciding, and it's like, oh, look, there they are. Like we've come across their app. It's nice to have those personal connections.
Yeah, great. Well, Micaiah, thank you so much. Thank you for your time. Thank you for all the students and parents who attended this session. The one other question we had is from a parent is if you're going to share the slides. I can't remember if it's already on the website or.
I'll reach out to you.
Okay.
We'll figure something out.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. So now you can return back to the main Countdown to College website to pick your next session that you would like to attend. And thank you so much for coming to us all the way from Washington. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.